Wake up! It's your old friend Corey Clark. The long wait is over. Wake Up Warchant has returned. No Aslan for today's show. We're doing a pivot here a little bit in the East Side studios with Ira Schafel. Say hi, Ira.
Not as east as Aslan is.
No, he's somewhere.
Not the far east.
Yeah, we do not know where he is. He might be in a plane right now. He might still be in Bali. We're not sure. We hope to have him back, I guess, in a couple of days, maybe.
Yeah, I think the last he said was he's hoping by Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, but does that mean he's back in the saddle? Like, will he just go straight to podcasting?
I assume he has to be quarantined for like 6 days.
Yeah.
So I don't know when he'll actually be back to podcasting. But there's been so much that's happened last week. We definitely need to get one out. So thank Ira for coming over and making this a reality, making this a possibility. I don't even know where to start. Oh, first we should start with the sponsors. I don't do this a lot, folks. But I tell you what, if I'm good enough at it, we might not need Aslan anymore. We might just eliminate the middleman. It might just be Corey and Ira's show or Corey solo. Zaxby's, Heather Birch. You have experience with both, Ira. Why don't you talk about both?
I do.
Those are our sponsors.
I'm big fans of both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Big fans. I'm not quite as big a fan of the. I'm not a big fan of the Zach sauce. I'm not as married to the Zach sauce.
Well,
Aslan, let's put the Zach sauce on everything.
Yeah, I put it on my salad.
You got to step out every once in a while. They got other flavors.
No, I've never done anything but the Zach sauce. Not for the chicken anyway. And then Heather Birch, you have a long history with Heather Birch.
We do. Dr. Birch has done the orthodontic work for all three of my daughters and has done tremendous work. We've got two of them out of braces now. One of them still in braces, and cannot recommend Birch Orthodontics enough. If you check out the website, birchorthodontics.com, and they will give you a free consultation and solve any orthodontic needs you want. And they'll do it with a smile, and they'll talk some Florida State sports with you, just like we're about to.
And I assume, there's some. Sorry, folks, we're actually watching the NBA, or we were trying to watch the NBA All-Star game. We are now at 8:30. It was supposed to start at 8, and they still haven't started the game. They're not even close to starting the game. Somebody else is singing.
It's just a bunch of musical acts.
But I'm sure Zaxby's has a website too. It's Zaxby's.com maybe. You know where they are. They're everywhere. Go visit them. They're good. There has been a lot to talk about, I guess. I don't know if we should run through the last week as far as the Duke game. I don't know that we need to do that. That was a week ago. But we'll do an overarching thoughts on the baseball opening the season against Niagara. That was a woeful start on Friday night. They rebounded with 35 runs over the next couple of days. And we'll talk about where the basketball team stands in general. So I guess first we'll go with let's do basketball first.
Yes.
So you didn't get to watch the game live, or you weren't at the game live on Saturday, but without Devin Vassell and without MJ for half the game, like literally he was out for an hour with getting his mouth fixed. He might go to Heather Birch.
He might need
to after that. Dom, come on, man, quit. No friendly fire. 21-4, 11-3. I think we get so caught up in this sometimes, Ira, like just like the next game, and they should win this game. They're a 9-point favorite. This would be a bad loss. That we don't take a step back and look at where this team is. They're 21-4.
It's funny. It hit me when I was editing your story from the game, and
was there a lot of editing?
No, it's perfectly clean as usual. Good. But when I saw
Raekwon with a capital
you
Q,
had the lowercase Q.
Okay,
but we fixed it. We fixed it. But when I saw the record, I think the 20 when it gets to 21-4, for some reason it was like startling. It was like 21-4. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And I think there are a lot of things I think impressive about that win. As you mentioned, not having Devin Vassell, what MJ Walker did, playing through the injury, like you said, coming back and then hitting the 4-point play and hitting all the threes. But then also, I just think that overall, what's been impressive is that this team they haven't lost back-to-back games all year.
Right. Well, they've only lost 4, so it's hard to lose back-to-back games.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying though. Like when they lose to Duke, you're thinking, okay, well, you could lose to Syracuse. I mean, it could happen, and it was a close game, but they didn't. They found a way to win. Just like earlier when they lost to Virginia, you were like, okay, well, maybe they. But it's like they find a way. Every time they have a setback, they find a way to get another win, and that's how you end up, with a record like 21-4.
Did you know last year they were like 29-6
at the end of the year?
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, they're 50-10 in their last 60 games. In excuse me, when you talk about this season, there's no way I expected it. It's Chaka Khan. There's no way I expected 21-4 11-3 in the conference. And I still think, I wrote about it afterwards, but I thought the Duke game up there, they finally had a full arsenal of players, which they went right back to not having it.
Yeah.
Right back to Walker having to go to the locker room, which he's had to do, it seems like 9 times this year for something. And then Devin not even playing, your best player not even playing. But at full capacity, that Duke game, you look at what Duke, I know Duke struggled with North Carolina. That's a weird deal. But if you take the North Carolina game out of it, Duke has been hammering everyone in recent weeks. And they won by 34 on Saturday night against Notre Dame. For Florida State to play like they did that day, and they were on 2. I know everybody made a big deal about Duke only being on 2-day or 1-day rest in between North Carolina and the Florida State game. Well, Florida State was on 1-day rest, and Florida State had to travel. Duke had to travel 8 miles for that road game, and then get to come back. You know what I mean? It's just different. And Florida State, I thought, was the better team. Other than a bad start, I thought Florida State was the better team, and I don't know how it got here. I don't know how the basketball program got to a point where they outplay, in my opinion, they outplay a good Duke team who will probably be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament for 35 minutes on their home court
without even playing great,
without playing well.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable. And then you look at the Syracuse game and you're like, okay, is the defense back to kind of struggling a little bit because it's had some ups and downs. And I just don't think we understand what Devin Vassell means to this team on both ends of the court. Well, we do on the offensive end, but what he does defensively is nuts. I mean, he covers space. He gets steals. He leads them in rebounds. He gets tough rebounds in traffic. He contests shots. I just think you could see where he was really missed on that end of the court.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think just from a length standpoint, when you've got Trent and Polite guarding the ball, and then you've got Devin on a wing, Patrick Williams on a wing. I mean, you have so much length in those passing lanes that it disrupts everything. And you saw it. I think you saw the opposite of it at the end of that Syracuse game where they couldn't get a stop.
Right.
Until the very end. I mean, Syracuse scored like 5 or 6 straight times down the court, and Florida State was matching it, but they couldn't get any stops. They couldn't get any separation, and I think that's when you don't have Devin Vassell. I think when you look at that Duke game and really the big picture, I mean, going into that game, I didn't think Florida State had to play out of its mind to win at Duke, but but you felt like they had to play well. What's amazing is that they almost won it not even playing well. And I guess the key to me is to explain it is I really think it goes to you've got, great guard play. I mean, Trent Forrest in that game against Duke was the best Trent Forrest we've seen all year.
Right.
One of the best performances he's ever had. And I think that's there. I think that's going to be there when they need it in the postseason. Even though he hasn't been that consistent. And
he also wasn't great against Syracuse.
What was all the turnovers, though?
Well, some of them were just bad. Like, he had a couple really bad ones that were I think they had a 3-point lead and the ball with a minute to go, and he just got the ball poked from behind and hit off his leg. He wasn't great with the ball, and he wasn't great overall against Syracuse, but that's not a team that Trent Forrest would typically shine against because they play a zone. He's not a shooter.
Yeah, they're going to pack it in.
But most teams don't play zone for 40 minutes. So Trent Forrest, I think it'll be interesting to see how he does against Pitt, and then just moving forward. I think he still played well, though, and he still made some big buckets late when they needed them, and then made the 2 free throws. But he played great against Duke. Nobody else did at all, really. Patrick Williams wasn't very good. He was assertive, but he wasn't very good. Malik Osborne hit some shots, but he wasn't great on the defensive end. I just think, late in the game, the Hughes kid was really tough to guard, and it would have helped to have Vassell and Patrick Williams and Trent Forrest all out there at once. Those are just dynamos defensively.
But at the end of the day, it's like, and I heard, I think it was the last show you guys did before Aslan left the country.
Left the hemisphere
was him talking about kind of wanting to see this team put together a complete game. And I think you rightfully, kind of were like, dude, chill out. I mean, first of all, who plays complete games every time out or even consistently in college basketball? There's just not a lot of it. A lot of it is muddling through to get wins and finding ways to win games. And I would be concerned if Florida State won a lot of close games, but it felt like fool's gold because they weren't the better team. Like if they just had a run where they just hit some crazy shots. Like, to be honest with you, Virginia, they're winning these games. A lot of times they haven't even led in some of these games, and they found ways to pull them out at the end. To me, that feels a little bit more fool's goldish than what Florida State does. And most of these games they've won, they've ended up being kind of close. But Florida State, I think, in just about every case, has been the better team.
Yeah, and for sure. And honestly, does it matter really? Like, there's nothing they're going to do in February that's going to. I don't think that is going to give you great pause or great encouragement for March. Like what they did at Duke to me was encouraging because it showed even when they don't play well against a very, very good team on their home court that they still have a chance to win a game. They're a really tough out.
Yeah, it was a one-possession game. And
yeah, but they're a tough out. They've lost 4 games. Yeah. All games have been close with 4 minutes to go. All 4 have been on the road. All have been close with 4 minutes to go. In 2 of them, I think they led or were tied in the final 2 minutes. That's just they're not going to. They don't suffer blowouts typically. I don't want to jinx it, obviously, but remember even John Isaac's year when he was here, they had a gaudy record. They won every game at home. They blew out a lot of teams at home, but they also got blown out a lot. You know, they got boat raced by a bad Georgia Tech team. They got blown out by Syracuse. They didn't play well, I think, at NC State. There were all these games where they didn't really even compete that well. Yeah. This team competes really hard, and that should give you hope going into March. But we all know how March is, man. You have one awful game. Another team has a kid that hits 9 threes or 7 threes. You're done. But what this last stretch is you want to set it up to make it as easy as possible to advance. That means being in Tampa. Obviously, the higher seed you are, if you're a 3 or a 4 or a 2, you're playing a worse team to start out. You don't get stuck with, hopefully, a Vermont 100 miles from their campus. You know what I mean? You have to go to Hartford and play them 100 miles from their campus. So you'll be in Tampa. You should have a home crowd. That's what you're fighting for. That's what these games are. That's why you want to stack on wins, with the hope that that helps you get to the Sweet 16, and from there you hope you catch fire.
Well, I think the fear I guess some people have is when you win a lot of close games, people feel like, okay, the law of averages is going to balance out, and you're going to lose a close game. You don't want that to happen at the wrong time in the tournament. But I think you gain way more from these experiences than you do doing anything in terms of like creating, just bad laws of averages. I mean, the idea that Florida State has been in these games, and like you said, in games where it looked like early things were going to go poorly, and they battled back. And the Miami game, the way they won that game, that was kind of crazy. The one down there, where they're down 9 with I don't know how many minutes to go, and they end up pulling out that win. I just feel like you don't ever want a team to feel like, oh, we've always got time because we can come back whenever. But there is a sense of resolve that guys have when they've been in those situations. Because if you had a team that steamrolled everybody all the time and won games by 15 or 20 points, then you would say, well, what happens if they get into a close game? Because they've never been in that situation. At the end of the day, like you said, the only thing that really matters is the wins and losses, and they're way ahead of the game. They've got Pitt coming up, which, at home, it's one of the 4 teams they lost in the season opener, but that was on the road, and it was just a crazy game. You like to think
about that. Like that game at Pitt to start the season, you just lost 6 players off the team, off a Sweet 16 team. You have no idea really how this is all going to work. I think Devin Vassell picked up 2 fouls in 7 seconds to start the game and then didn't play until the second half. And you lose at Pitt, and you're like, man, this might be back to like 4, 5, 6 years ago where it's a struggle. It might be an NIT team. It might be a bubble team.
Because you felt like that was a really bad Pitt team, too.
It was just and it's not. Game. It's a decent team.
But at the time, that's what we were thinking.
But still, it's tough to start with that. It was dumb to start like that anyway with the road ACC, just with ACC games as openers. But so you're wondering, man, this might be a struggle. This might be an 18-11 type season or a 20-12. And they're 21-3 since that game. Nobody would have seen that coming, right? Their very next game, they won at Florida.
Blew out Florida.
Yeah. And I think, we got to touch on it. Devin Vassell did not play. All I can say, Leonard's never going to talk about stuff like this, and I didn't even ask him that. I just basically asked him. He had just gotten done talking about MJ Walker's lip for about 2 minutes, and then I said, "Hey," and then he's like, "All right, any questions?" And the first question for me was, "Hey, Leonard, Devin Vassell, was he injured? And do you think do you expect him back? If not, or if so, do you expect him back Tuesday night against Pitt?" And he goes, "You guys know me. I don't talk about injuries. We've never talked about injuries." And I want to be like, man, you were just talking about an injury, and you talk about injuries all the time. You don't talk about other reasons why kids don't play. And I was watching Devin Vassell in warm-ups. He did about 3 crazy highlight reel dunks. So, yeah, he's fine. he seemed fine health-wise. And if he wasn't, I think Leonard would say, oh, he was sick, he was throwing up. He's told us that about Dominic this year when he was sick, when he didn't play. So it was a disciplinary reason. Leonard's never going to explain what it was. He never has. So there's no point in even asking or speculating. But it only, and it happened 2 years ago with Terrence Mann. He missed a game. Brian Angola Rodas missed a couple of games, I think, and we're never told. I think Terrence Mann even last year might have missed a game.
Yeah.
So this is kind of par for the course.
Yeah, if you've been following Florida State basketball under Leonard Hamilton for 19 years, since he's been here, 18 years, whatever it is, since he's been here, it used to happen all the time. Like in his first 6 or 7 years, he was constantly suspending guys.
Yeah.
Because of missing classes or missing curfew or whatever it was, just different reasons. He would guys showing up late to meetings, things like that, and building the culture of discipline. He was constantly, just constantly having to suspend guys. Then you really for large periods of time we haven't had it, so people forget it, and then they're kind of like taken aback, like, wow, what happened?
Yeah.
So I think some people are assuming it's something major. It could be. We don't know. My guess, knowing Devin Vassell, is you assume it was not.
It's not major, and I also wouldn't think that if it was major, he'd be warming up with the team and dressed up in warm-ups before the game. And being such a part of the team on the bench, like talking them up. I think when the game was over and the three-pointer missed, MJ went to celebrate, and the first guy that jumped up with him to do whatever that jump back thing is was Devin. So he seemed like he was still – if he wasn't going to be playing for the rest of the season, I don't know that he's still that invested in things. So, but again, we won't know until Tuesday night about 7:45 when they release the starting lineup. We'll know if Devin's disciplinary measures are through.
Yeah, history tells us it doesn't necessarily mean anything big because there's been a ton of these and they were minor things and they move on. But the fact that they played without him against Syracuse, and Syracuse, Patrick Hughes kid had a huge game. Elijah Hughes.
Patrick Hughes.
He played tight end for Florida State back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Remember him?
There you go. Okay.
And he had a big game, but Devin Vassell didn't play, and they still got the win. So I think at the end of the day, it's a really good win. What was the deal with Buddy Boeheim? Did he just miss shots, or did they lock him up?
He had 2 open threes that rimmed out. All the other ones were highly contested. He just couldn't get free. But he did have 2 that were wide open. They just rimmed out. But yeah. He was averaging 16 a game, I think, and he had scored 30 in a couple games this year. And he got completely. He scored as many as Vassell. So they washed away. It was a wash there with Vassell and Buddy Boeheim.
So you want to move over to baseball?
Let's do any football news. Any.
We could tease the Keyshawn Helton piece.
No, let's not do that yet. Why don't we talk about, because we haven't even gotten to talk about the conditioning. The 6 a.m. conditioning that we got to visit. Folks, you guys know that I love to wake up in the morning. I just gotten back from my run, and that would have been like 5:30 when I got done, showered, got in the car, and then drove over to the IPF to watch what is it, Tour of Duty?
Tour of Duty.
Duty.
Correct.
Not the other spelling of duty.
Of course not.
Tour of Duty. It would be funny if that was what happened. Anyway, so we were there. All the media were there. We got to film, I think, the first 10 minutes, but we got to watch all of it. Ira, since I'm driving the show, usually I'm the one that has to espouse opinions, but I don't have to do that now. I can play the Aslan role. I'll praise Jimbo here in a second.
I was going to say, you got to tell me how it wasn't as good as Jimbo.
What'd you think? Any observations to take away?
The biggest thing to me was because a lot of people wanted to know how different it was in the last 2 years. We can really just kind of go off of anecdotal evidence the last 2 years with Willie Taggart's early, winter conditioning. They called it the chase because none of that was open. He didn't make any of those available to the media.
What are they chasing, do you think?
Greatness. Okay. You're chasing excellence.
They're not being chased?
Well, are you chasing greatness and you end up in excellence, or you're chasing excellence and you end up
you shoot for the stars and land on the moon?
Something like that. Yeah. Anyway, they were chasing something and they never found it, so he got fired.
They did not, no.
But anecdotally, they were not great. Those workouts were not, for people that did see them, did not have a super high opinion of them. What we saw the other day, I thought there were some things that were impressive. From a macro standpoint, the thing I liked was that one of the things they did that I really liked was they really held some of the best players to a super high standard. Like Marvin Wilson, and to me, I would have assumed that Marvin Wilson coming back for this year, maybe they just be like, hey, Marvin, just chill out. We know what you can do. We're not. But I literally thought they pushed him harder than anybody else I saw. They constantly, when he would go through drills, like he was going through David Johnson, the running backs coach, had an agility drill. And every time, basically, I couldn't ever really figure out why he was pulling guys out and making them do extra work. There was something he didn't like that they did during the agility drill, that he would make them either do sit-ups or push-ups. It seemed kind of random, honestly. But the only thing that was not random is that he made Marvin Wilson do it like every time.
Right.
Like every time Marvin went through the drill, he made him go do 5 push-ups, 10 push-ups, 5 sit-ups.
Tamari Terry, too. On the drill that I was next to, he had to do it at least twice. Yeah, he had to do 10 push-ups twice.
And they had both of those guys in those orange jerseys, which we haven't been told the exact criteria, but it's not a good thing. If you're in an orange jersey, that means there's something. Maybe the last time they did this drill, they're doing it once a week right now. They're going to move it up to 2 times a week. They weren't thrilled with their performance, so I just think that's a good sign. I mean, I think again, it's kind of like if you're coaching a team and you hold the best players to a high standard, I mean, obviously that's going to rub off on everybody else.
Yeah, and I also and it was not for our benefit at all the way Norvell is. It's just different, man. I don't remember. I can't remember. I know we saw Jimbo at these things. I don't remember how involved he was with them.
Yeah. So going back just historically,
but he's much different. Norvell is much different than Willie. We ever saw Willie in a practice situation.
Yeah, and just to clarify, because I said that Willie didn't open his to the media, Jimbo would open one of them to the media, just like Norvell did. There was one, and that's kind of the precedent we used when arguing to see if they would let us have one open.
Jimbo, he's like, 6 a.m.
Jimbo usually would let us have one to watch, but it was usually at the end, and it was usually after they'd kind of gone through it for 4 weeks or whatever, and they kind of had it down, and he felt good about it. He would let us watch it. The last year or two, he didn't let us watch them at all because at that point he hated us.
Right.
But
hated you.
But before that, Coach Bowden never those were mat drills, and we were never allowed to watch those. So it wasn't odd that Willie never let us in. But with Jimbo's, the assistant coaches ran him. He wasn't as vital to him, I guess, or integral to him as Norvell was. He would kind of like maybe chime in here or there.
Right.
But it wasn't a constant.
Yeah.
Like Norvell looked like he was almost like he was running that mat drill.
Yeah, in Norvell, and I was going to say, and it wasn't. I think some people, probably not head coaches of a Division I school, but there are people that were like, "Oh, the media's here. Let me act like I'm really in charge." Norvell, that's just him. But he was literally, he was like stalking in the middle of the field between drill to drill, yelling at guys to finish. And I don't think it wasn't for our benefit. It wasn't because cameras were there, reporters were there. That, to me anyway, that's just who he is. That's who he's always going to be. He's a very, I don't say upbeat. That's not the word. Energetic, just in go.
Passionate.
And you hear him. You hear him above all else. And obviously, and look, Willie's won games at places before, not a lot at Florida State, but you're not going to hear him on a practice field. Those practices, he didn't have a presence like Mike Norvell did. And again, we'll see what it means in terms of wins and losses. But it was a Norvell conditioning event. He was everywhere. He was talking more than anybody else, and he was walking up and down the field more than anybody else. Other than that, I don't know what observations we can make about who was out there.
Yeah, there was a lot of on a micro level, there were some things that, some things that were good, some things that were not good. On the positive side, I think some guys, you saw their bodies a little bit different. Like a Chaz Neal, back of an offensive lineman, he looked a lot thicker. You had some guys who, some of those young guys were really impressive. The true freshman receiver, Brian Robinson, early enrollee.
Yeah, he can move.
Yeah, he's an impressive dude.
He's got some, what I like to call fast twitch.
Okay.
Fast twitch, yeah.
And that's helpful.
He's twitchy. Is that what Jimbo used to say when he said kids were twitchy?
Sure. You can play low to high.
Yeah, well, we don't know about his ball skills yet, but very twitchy. Because he was wasn't he working out with Blackman a lot, like going through some stuff with Blackman? Yeah, man, he's impressive physically for sure.
On the other side of it, some of the offensive linemen were not super impressive.
I don't care. I'll be honest with you. I know who you're talking about. We don't have to mention them. People can go probably find the videos or stuff. I want him to be enormous and fat. I don't care that he's in terrible shape. You got to play 70 plays a game. You're not going to be running around hula hoops in a game. I know you're supposed to be in good shape, but I'd rather you be fat. I'd rather you be enormous. I want more Cole Minshews. I'm telling you. I bet you the Alabama guys aren't running around hula hoops and picking up tennis balls.
I got you, man. It was a little early, and the video was only the first 10 minutes.
Sure,
so
understood.
I'm with you at the end.
Right.
Maybe the first 10 minutes. I think I need to see a little bit of life. But, we're just not super athletic on some of the guys in the offensive line. But some of them were healthy. They looked like healthy. That was good. I mean, like the end of last season, Brady Scott wasn't playing or was kind of in and out of the lineup. Andrew Baselli, same thing. They both looked totally healthy, at least, out there.
Do you think there's also a chance, and I'm not saying it would happen this way, but when you look at the fact that the only day we're out there are the days where Tamari and Terry and Marvin Wilson are in the orange jerseys, meaning we don't know exactly what it means, but we know it's not good.
Yeah.
That's not like the best you can do. They would never at Florida State have the best you could do be an orange jersey.
No.
All their rivals are orange, so it's a
bad thing.
It's 100%. A bad thing. So, do you think there's a chance, knowing that we'd be out there, they wanted to show us that we're not playing favorites, even our two best players? If they don't give us the effort we want, we don't care that the media's here. We're going to maybe we do care, and we're going to put them in an orange jersey to show our fans and to show these players and recruits that this is what we expect. There's a standard, even if you're the best player. We're not going to hold you to a different standard.
I mean, it's possible. The risk of doing that, though, is that if you're not consistent with what you do and if you put on a show because the media's there, then that reflects poorly from the player standpoint, and I think it will rub them the wrong way.
Right.
So there's some risk to doing
Unless
that.
they might have even – there's a chance. Like I'm just saying, if I'm a head coach and I got the media coming out to my conditioning drills and I got these two really good players and I'm trying to set a message, set a tone, maybe I don't do it for the media's sake, but I might do it for the other players on the roster's sake to say, look, guys, we like the effort you're giving. We do think you can do better, but we want to use you as an example. You're our best players. We want the second string linebacker to see that we'll take Tamari and Terry and put him in an orange jersey, even when the media's there, because we don't care, because we expect a different standard. You think there's a chance they could go to Tamari and go to Marvin?
I would say maybe, except when I saw Marvin yakking in a garbage can, I'm thinking he's probably thinking, man, this wasn't. I didn't sign up for this.
Oh, right. Yeah.
No, I think it's implied. I mean, I think Marvin and Tamari and those guys, I think they know when they get ridden hard that there's a reason for it. I mean, I think great players a lot of times expect it because they know that, the coaches aren't going to push the weakest players. They're going to push the strongest players. So I think it's just something that they're probably expecting to a degree. I did like the way they both responded, especially Tamarian. I thought Tamarian and Ontario Wilson, because he was in orange also, man, I thought they did really well in the drills I saw.
Yeah.
And they seemed to be very engaged and high-fiving each other. So I think it probably had the desired effect, whether it was intentional or not.
In Ontario, man, you forget. It's Ontario, right?
Yeah.
Man,
he's a good-looking guy. He can move. He can
really move. On a field full of Florida State football players, he stands out. He's just a little bit different to me than almost everybody else on that field.
And it's weird because, and we talked about this last season before he got hurt, they start him all the time. He started games his freshman year, or redshirt freshman year. He started games last year. And I think a lot of people were surprised that he was starting some games he was starting. And then he would have a really nice game. And I just don't think people perceive him to be that athletic. But you're right. When you watch him in those drills, man, he can fly.
Yeah. I remember asking somebody in preseason last year, who's the fastest guy on the team, expecting it to be Tamarian or one of the DBs, and well, it's probably Pokey.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, you just don't. He doesn't. He's not ever the first person that comes to mind. Even in the receiving corps, he was the fourth or fifth person you'd think of behind Terry and DJ Matthews and Keyshawn and maybe Gavin, if you thought that was ever going to happen. It did not. So overall, there's not a whole lot you can take from that. I guess we haven't even been on the air since they announced the spring days So spring practice
schedule?
starts March.
March 7th, I think.
7th?
Is that right?
Yeah, and the spring game it's sometime in March, and the spring game is April 18th. Correct? Come on, Ira.
Mid-April.
Mid-April, sometime in April. It's not the Final Four weekend, and I'm almost positive it's not Masters weekend either. I think it's after the Masters weekend.
Perfect.
So there you go. Norvell knows what he's doing there. So now we can switch to baseball real quick.
I did. I left Saturday and Sunday to you because I was trying to finish my Keyshawn Helton piece, which we'll talk about later.
Go ahead. No, tease about it now.
Right,
go for it now. We're in football.
So, yeah, one of the things that Coach Norvell kind of offered to us in the media, basically.
Are you going to call him Coach or Norvell or Mike?
I don't know. It's hard.
You're really
it's
weird
hard.
with your
because
your titles. You stick to titles. You'll call him like President Thrasher and not just Thrasher.
Yes.
You call
You know what's funny about that?
You did that with President Barron too.
Well, I think what sets the tone there is their executive assistant, Cheryl Baker, awesome person. She refers to them as the president, like in emails.
Right.
Or when talking, she'll just call him the president. So I think I just kind of get into President Thrasher, President Barron. I don't know, showing some respect.
You are, yeah, for sure.
For the position. But like the thing with Norvell is it's
Coach
just
Norvell.
Nothing fits. Nothing
Yeah,
works.
wait,
Mike doesn't work. Jimbo worked. Willie worked. Mike doesn't work.
Norvell works, I think. We can't call. Yeah, there's no way we can call him Mike. Like Jimbo and Willie, they're such unique first names that everybody knows who you're talking about. But Mike, it could be anyone. It could be the head coach of the baseball team.
It could be the plumber.
Yeah,
it could be anybody.
But Norvell, I think Norvell's fine. You can't. You're not going to sit here for the next how many years and call him Coach Norvell. That's a weird thing to do.
All right, I'll drop the coach.
Okay, anyway.
All right, Norvell. It just reminds me of when that girl used to say McGuire. I think that's the problem, is because the accent's on the second part. I think that's the problem. Remember that girl, that female reporter, the student journalist?
Talking about Sean McGuire?
Yeah.
And she'd say Mugwire?
You don't remember that?
No.
Were you here?
I was. I remember him.
There was a student reporter, and she would, whenever we were interviewing Sean McGuire, she would just go, McGuire.
Oh,
it was just like
all
so
right.
bizarre. It was like it sounded like MacGyver. It reminded me of those SNL skits.
Right.
Anyway, anyway, so Norvell, when we talked to him, I guess it was back a month or so ago, he mentioned that he wanted to have a little bit more access and allow us to do some stories that maybe we haven't been able to do in the past. I reached out to them and asked if we could do. I wanted to kind of look at Keyshawn Helton's recovery from his devastating knee injury that he sustained last year in the Clemson game, and I asked if I could maybe go watch him work out, go through some of his rehab, sit down with him, talk to the trainers.
And remind people what the injury was again.
So Keyshawn in the Clemson game last year. And I write about it in the story. I think you can get my frustration in the story about how ridiculous it was that they were running the plays they were running in that situation. Clemson was up 28-0. They're about to go in 35-0. They're down at the 1 yard line. Florida State gets a stop. Clemson fumbles. Florida State gets the ball at the 1 yard line with 1 minute and 12 seconds to go.
I remember at the time thinking that's going to turn the game around. That's a game saver.
Up until that point, FSU had 2 first downs. They hadn't passed midfield.
Right. Yep.
They hadn't done anything.
Each quarterback had thrown a pick, right? Or each quarterback had played.
But they got the ball at the 1 yard line with 72 seconds to go in the half, and we're going no huddle. Let's air it out. Let's try to score. Well, sure enough, on the third play, Blackman throws a pick, goes right to it gets tipped, goes right to a linebacker. Here's the thing: if you go back and watch that play, and you can find if you watch the condensed highlights from that game.
By the way, shout out to the ACC network
that they do that.
They do
awesome.
that for football and basketball.
Yeah.
It's great.
And they're up there really quickly.
Really quickly. If you go onto YouTube and just type in, I think it's ACC Digital Network or just ACC, you'll see every basketball game, a conference game. They condense it mainly into all the made shots. So you see almost every made shot of every basketball game, and I think you see pretty much almost every meaningful play of every football game.
Sometimes there's stuff you wish you was in there, and then you watch it and it's not in there. But most of the big stuff, and so a 3-hour football game they turn into like 20 minutes.
Right.
It's a cool tool, and sometimes we'll put it as a highlights into our stories. But anyway, on the website. But so he throws it, and what's interesting about the play though is. So he's intending the pass for Trayshawn Harrison down the seam. Keyshawn's kind of running out. Tamarian Terry's just underneath. He really doesn't even run. He just kind of stands there and turns around. Blackman tries to throw it to Harrison, gets tipped to the line of scrimmage, goes right to the linebacker. Keyshawn, as far as I can tell, is maybe one of the only players to actually pursue it from downfield.
Right.
Like Trayshawn just kind of was like, oh, well. Keyshawn turns around, starts sprinting back, dives to make the tackle. As he goes to launch himself to make the tackle, Blackman is coming from the other direction. He dives to make the tackle and hits Keyshawn in his left leg as he's planning to dive. So it just completely destroys Keyshawn's knee. And so we never really even got the diagnosis on his injury.
Lower extremity.
We knew it was a lower body injury.
Yeah.
You knew it was a knee, but we didn't actually get the details. I mean, it was a catastrophic injury. He basically tore 2 ligaments, almost tore a third, destroyed the kneecap, part of the kneecap. Really just a devastating injury. And had a surgery a few days later, and has been rehabbing, and now is at the point now he's really ahead of schedule. He and Jaden Woodby, I also have a story coming on him and Jaden Lars Woodby about them kind of their bond through all this, because Jaden Lars Woodby had a similar injury 2 weeks earlier.
Right.
So they've been going through rehab together. So the first story I did was about Keyshawn. It's kind of his life story, kind of how he became a Florida State football player, going back to being an undersized kid. Yeah, the story's
that's why it's taking you so long.
It's a long story, buddy.
Why didn't you just do the injury portion
because
of it?
It's just there's more to it. It gives you some background on. I talked to his family. I talked to.
All right.
Really went into it.
You did.
So anyway, that story should be up on the website when you hear this. It's a long story
on warchant.com.
Pack a lunch.
Yeah,
it's a long story at warchant.com.
It's funny because you hate reading those stories.
It's not that I hate reading those stories. I don't.
You don't have the attention or something?
The idea, no, the whole thing is long form journalism became like this thing where everybody felt like they could do long form journalism. Well, it's really hard to do long form. It's really hard to write. Anybody can write, any of us can write a story that's interesting in 600 words or 1,000 words. Once you start going more than 1,500 or 2,000 words, it's hard to keep people. You have to be really good at writing to get people to stay in tune with it.
Yeah.
And the problem is so many people who couldn't really write were writing those kinds of stories and saying, oh, it's long form. Oh, and people would say, oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's just long.
Just because it's long.
It's long. There's no form to the story. It's just long. Exactly. It's a lot of words.
Well, that's
not you though.
But that's my concern with this story is that it's long, and I'm I don't know. It's okay. It's good. There's a lot of good information there. It's kind of a beast to write, so I don't know if it's my best. But I think it's definitely worth reading. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. His family's awesome. If you want to know why Keyshawn Helton is so awesome as a kid, his parents are really cool. They just really devoted. And I didn't even know his twin brother plays at USF. I didn't really even realize that before.
I don't know that I realized that.
Keyshawn Helton. Anyway, so talk about them being undersized kids coming up and coming back through the injury and all that. So it's an interesting story. And then, like I said, I'll have the other story coming on him and Woodby. But, and I think it sounds like there's going to be opportunities to do things like that going forward, which is cool because traditionally since Coach Bowden left, we haven't had a lot of opportunities to do stories outside of the season.
Yeah, and I've talked about it on here before with Aslan about when we had that meeting with Norvell and his staff, and he's telling us that he wants us to have a relationship, and he wants us to have access. I remember meeting with you afterwards saying we got to change the way we think because we've been so indoctrinated into these are the times we get the players. It's for 4 minutes. Don't even ask for anything else because you're not going to get. You don't even know how to think like that. Could I go grab lunch with a player and just go walk around campus with them? Would they let me do that? And I don't know I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that Norvell seems to really understand how much the media means, and again, because of the media and the access to the fans. The fans, we're the window. You get access to the team through the media, through interviews, through stories like what Ira's doing. And I always thought it's so short-sighted of some of these coaches. Wait till you read this story. I haven't read it yet. Probably won't. But Ira's just, I don't like long stories. You know that. Can you give me like a synopsis at the end?
Notes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But when you read that story, you will probably become a Keyshawn Helton fan for life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's something. And then so you cheer for him more. He becomes more than just number 20. He's a kid that you really feel like you know and that you want to root for. And I just wish more coaches had that kind of mindset. And I think Norvell does. Now, he's also only been the head coach at Memphis, who I don't know how many people they get at their games. I don't know what kind of media attention they get. It's not a ton. It's certainly not what it is in Tallahassee. So we'll see once he gets burned a couple times by people that maybe,
like with this story.
Yeah, right. But just there'll be some growing, probably some learning, some growing pains, a learning curve. How much he's still all about it, but I really do think he wants to give you guys access to this team and to like this team. I think freshmen are going to be allowed to talk. I think, from what we understand, we're going to be at least able to see some practices.
Yeah.
We just can't report on things he doesn't want us to report on. It's pretty simple. So, because he wants us to know what we're writing about and know what we're talking about. And it reminds me, weirdly, I can't remember if I brought this up when Aslan, we'll get to baseball after this, when I was talking to Aslan afterwards about when you went up with Jimbo to watch the debacle of that Virginia game in 11.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he was doing that like, hey, I want to show it. He was more like, this is why our offense sucks.
Yeah.
We can't block anyone. This is what was supposed to happen. But that stuff is awesome. And people love that stuff.
Yeah, and Leonard Hamilton, actually, back in the day when I was in college, I remember hearing the story when he was in Miami, when he was at the University of Miami, and they were a good program. They had built it into a good program, and he was having problems with one of the columnists at the Miami Herald who kept ripping him for things that his point was this reporter didn't really understand what they were writing about.
Right.
And
that's not because she's a female. It's because there's plenty of stuff that we've written about that we didn't understand.
Exactly. And there's a lot of things exactly. And a lot of times I'll stay away from certain things from an X's no standpoint because I don't know everything. I don't know the assignments. I don't know everything that was going on. But anyway, but he offered to sit down with that reporter and kind of go over, like, let me show you what we're trying to do. And that's exactly what Jimbo was trying to do in that situation.
And I think Norvell would do stuff like that. Yeah. Maybe not during the season, but after the spring game, if we could, and this is an idea, after the spring game, maybe watch a half of the film with him.
Well, and the other...
with him, have him break it down to us, what he likes, what he doesn't like, something like that.
Well, one of the cool things, again, one of the things we've always wanted is the coordinators to speak after games because what can happen then is like when Mickey Andrews or Jeff Bowden or whoever was, when Jimbo was the offensive coordinator for Bobby, when the coordinators...
went to Jeff Bowden?
Huh?
You immediately went to Jeff Bowden?
Well, I was just thinking of who was Bowden's offensive coordinator.
All right, okay.
But, we could talk to the coordinators after the games, and you could ask them questions like, for example, with Mickey, if you asked him on the record.
Jeff,
what
the hell was that?
It's a jump ball. It's not my fault they couldn't catch it.
Not my fault. Sean Taylor's over there.
One of the last times we talked to Jeff was a Rick's game. It was a Rick's game, and he threw a pick at the end. Did Rick's play in that Gator Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of that,
been one of the last times. He was there for another 3 years after that.
Was it? Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, that was one of my favorite ones. Was Rick's? They won the game, but Rick still threw a pick his last.
Like in the end zone.
At the end of this game, yeah. And we were talking to him after the game, and Jeff Bowden just kept laughing. He's like, "Of course, that's what Chris did." Yeah. But anyway, what Mickey would do is, on the record, he was not going to throw anybody under the bus. Like if you said, "Hey, whose fault was that play?" He wouldn't just rip them publicly, but if you went to him afterwards, after the interview was over, and you turned off the microphone and said, "Hey, Mickey, it looked like so-and-so got burned on that play. Was it his fault?" And he would say, "No, actually, the safety was supposed to come over the top." Or he didn't have safety help. He knew he didn't have safety help. He should never have let that guy go free.
Right.
He would explain that to you, and it was helpful in the writing. Jimbo would never do that. Jimbo didn't let the coordinators talk, and he didn't necessarily always know what was going on the defensive side of the ball. Willie clearly didn't know what was going on, and he also didn't let his coordinators talk after the game. So that, I always felt like it hurts the quality of the information the fans are getting.
Sure. And it's also kind of not fair to the kids that like the 19-year-old has to come in and answer how you gave up 60 points to Clemson, but the guy getting paid all the money doesn't until 2 or 3. Now, at least with Willie, that we would talk to them a couple
like 4 days later. Yeah.
But Jimbo, it was always just you get the players and you get Freddie Stevenson and you're going to get I don't know, Terrence Smith or somebody, Reggie Northrup, and those are going to have to explain the losses. So we really do think moving forward, it's a good reason to sign up to Warchant, honestly. I'll toot our own horn here. I think we have the best writers on the beat. We certainly have the guys that are the oldest. We have the oldest on the beat. And I think you and I, in particular, then Aslan and video, will be able to do some really cool things moving forward with an accepting coaching staff. And a coaching staff that's willing to do stuff with us. I think we can do some really cool stuff.
And then now we talk about baseball?
Now we talk about baseball. The Mike Martin Jr. debut.
So I go out there Friday night,
Yeah.
and that was not the best.
No, it was not impressive.
So
There was nothing good about it.
it really was really kind of remarkable how it all went. What is interesting to me, and I don't know how much we can take away from that series. I mean, they pummeled poor Niagara the next 2 games. I don't know if you could take much more out of those games than you did from the first game, which, again, was just kind of bad baseball. But I am curious about like how the players respond to him, like through some of these things. Because like after the game Friday night, it was a little bit different than a Mike Martin Sr. press conference.
You think?
But like his third word of his mouth was garbage.
Right.
Like talking about the approach offensively, it was garbage.
Did he tip it? Didn't he at one point
He
say
did
you
say
gotta tip your
something.
cap?
He did say something.
Yeah, I was talking to Stephen McCartney, the FSU baseball SID, about it. He's like, I know there was the sentiment there, but I don't know if he actually used the words. I think he said
I think he
something
phrased
like,
it a little differently.
but like they kick
Take
take your hat off to them, they kick our butts,
yeah.
something like that.
But anyway, so it. But I'm curious how they respond to some of the things he's going to say publicly.
Right.
And then also like, so after he gets the game ball after they win on Saturday.
Yeah, this is, again, it's a new day, folks. And we knew this coming in. Mike Martin Jr. is not Mike Martin Sr. Now, they're both red asses, which is a baseball term. Just that Mike Martin Sr. was 75. He was 75. He was a little bit more mellow. I'm sure he was just like this back then.
Oh,
We're like
100%.
it's like going back in the time machine to see what he was like. But Ira asked him, because, look, he had his son leading off. The very first hit, his first baseball team got was from his son,
Tyler Martin.
And then Tyler Martin scored a run on a bunt, a 2-out bunt from Matt Nelson. He scored to, I think that was the only run until the ninth.
Yeah, it was the only run until they blew the lead in the ninth.
And so Ira asked him, was it special at all that the first run of your tenure was from Tyler, your son? And he's like, no, he got a horrible jump. It's like, oh boy, it's a new day. And then the very next day, he was asked about, because they won 24-4, so it was his first win as a head coach, and he was asked what it meant to get that first win, and he's like, nothing. He goes, Chip Baker gave me a game ball, and then I tossed it to Steven and said, put that back in the bucket. It's a good ball. It's like, all right, man, there's just not a lot of sentimentality here. We knew that, though, going in, but it's going to be different. And, yeah, you're right, because he'll talk about how that was awful. They were awful. They did not sorry, we're watching the – you got to get up. Oh, she's hurt. Sorry. So, Florida State – you'll be listening to this. It's hours later. They had a 2-1 lead in the 7th against UCLA with two outs, and then UCLA just hit a double off the left fielder's glove off the wall.
It was in her glove.
It was in her glove, and then she hit the wall, and it bounced out.
I mean, it was a tough catch.
It was a tough catch, but she was right there. She was positioned perfectly. So anyway, it's been a rough weekend for the FSU softball team. They've lost a lot. Maybe they'll come back and win this one, but it's a good hit.
It's a nice piece of hitting right there.
Geez, off the plate. She just goes with it. So anyway, it's just going to be different. Yeah, she hit the wall right before it got the glove, so that was a little bit of a bummer. But anyway, you're right. There's not much to take. There's not much to take from this. They're pitching. You didn't see the last 2 games.
Not good.
No.
I'm talking about
Florida State. No, Niagara. That was ridiculous. Brady's team. I mean, they had the 2 or 3 good kids on Friday. They really did have 3, I thought, quality arms on Friday. But after that, they completely ran out of it. But Florida State, he's not lying. They just bring in guy after guy after guy that's sitting 92, sometimes 94, and they have some wicked stuff, man. And on Sunday, they struck out 15. They walked 1. Niagara, again, not a great college baseball team, but they were just completely overmatched. And it's been a while since Florida State could run out. It reminded me of Florida. I don't think they're at that level yet. But it reminded me of Florida, where it didn't matter who they brought in. It's like, where did they get this guy? 93 with some movement, and I think that's where Florida State appears to be pitching wise. Offense, it's going to be tough all year, I think. Yeah,
I mean, from what I saw on Friday, that clearly was the case, and they scored a lot more runs on Saturday and Sunday, obviously, but it didn't. I mean, the offense it's going to be a struggle, and I'm curious again to see how he handles that. Is he going to ride with 9 guys for a little while, or is he going to be kind of mixing and matching every day, every 2 days, kind of impatiently? I mean, all these things, to me, the first 3 months of the season probably is going to be just that, watching how he handles different things.
Yeah, and how he handles losses, how he handles wins, how he handles a player's psyche. Because he will. Throwing under the bus isn't the right term because that implies that you're almost blaming someone. No, he's just going to be honest. He's going to say, "Look, he had terrible at bats." Mike Martin Sr. would never say something like that. But watch Kevin O'Sullivan. He's not Mr. Marshmallow Man with his. Most baseball coaches aren't.
But like if you got a guy up there in the 6th inning or 8th inning, whatever it is, bases loaded, 2 outs, and he chases ball 4, and strikes out, Mike Martin Sr. would have credited the other team's pitcher for making a great pitch.
Right.
I'm guessing Mike Martin Jr. is probably going to rip the kid, or at least say he's got to be better.
Yeah, and even on Friday night when he was talking about how garbage their approach was about the players, he did say that falls on me. I got to get better. At the end of the day, that falls on me. So he said the right thing. But we've been so used. For 4 decades. Yeah. Well, really, let's say for about the last 15, 17 years, when he became the grandfather of college baseball, that those press conferences all went a certain way. Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield, tip your cap. Those days are over, man.
But more importantly, it's going to be over for the players.
I'm curious. You saw how they responded, though. I know it's Niagara,
no, I know.
But he was not happy with them, and I'm sure whatever he said to us after Friday night, he was much less nice to them in the locker room. And they still came out and won 35
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It may be a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Oh, I agree.
I agree,
100%. And it's going to be, each press conference, I feel a little more on my toes. You know what I mean? It's not going to be rehearsed. And I'm not going to he's not the same cadence. Corey, it's none of that anymore. It's you're going to get direct answers, and you have no idea what's going to come out of Meat's mouth, which is, kind of cool, I think. It's different anyway. But overall, they're hitting, Cabell is a guy, we won't get too in the weeds of this. It's the first series of a college baseball season. But Cabell is a guy I think is the key to the whole thing. He's got such raw talent. And then the first game he went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. I think he made contact twice with foul balls in his first at bat. And then the next 2 days he didn't strike out at all. Had a couple hits on Saturday. Didn't get hits on Sunday, but didn't strike out, which, again, it's a good thing, make contact. But I think he's a guy that could be he's their cleanup hitter, but he has such incredible power that he could blow
a game open.
He could take over a series. He could get hot and take over the team. So Reese Albert and Robbie Martin, those are the only 2 proven guys on the whole lineup. Dylan Simmons had a nice weekend. It's against Niagara, but he had a nice weekend. He's a freshman. Overcame cancer, by the way. It's a really cool story. He's also a pitcher. And I thought Tyler Martin certainly wasn't overwhelmed.
No.
It was Niagara, but he had an idea of what he was doing when he was up there. His bunt was great. Everything he had an idea. He goes the opposite field, makes contact for the most part. But they have so many question marks in the lineup that even a Mike Martin Jr. offense, they're going to walk, they're going to get hit by pitches. It's just not going to be what we're used to around here. They're not going to hit many home runs at all unless Cabell takes off.
And I think there's going to be growing pains for Meat because, in the 9th inning where he went through 4 pitchers in that Friday night game.
Yeah, that was very eerily similar to his dad, who I'm sure back in the day would be like, Dad, quit run. Let this guy get through it, right?
And then so you wonder, and then what is he saying to them when they come out? Is he, what's his demeanor? And does he have to figure that out? Does he have to find the right tone? Because I don't know if you inherently have that. He's never done this before.
No.
He could practice it, I guess.
Yeah, and he has been, he has not been the head coach. It's not like he's been the head coach in waiting. He's not been the de facto head coach. Mike Martin Jr. was making all the decisions. Mike Martin Sr., was making the decisions. It was his team. But he had, been a very big part of the program.
Sure.
All those kids know him. He's always been a hard coach. So I'm not so much interested in how they react to him as a head coach because I think they've dealt with him so much over the years anyway. Yeah. The older guys, just the in-game decisions that he's never. Yeah. He's always had an opinion on, but now they're his decisions. And in hindsight, none of those pitching decisions in the 9th worked. But he went to his closer with a 1-run lead, and the kid gave up. He walked the first kid, and then gave up a rocket to the second kid, and he pulled them, and it just kind of devolved from there where they couldn't throw strikes. So, you learn lessons. But the next 2 days, his pitching was incredible. It was even great that game until the last inning. So they're going to be a team. They're going to be a pitching heavy team. They got a lot of arms and not a lot of bats. They might be the skinniest team in Florida State history. It's not just Tyler Martin. I mean, they are. I mean, there's a lot of like Kate Mosses. I mean, really, really tiny waists. But yeah, 2-1. I don't know. We'll know more obviously in about 3 weeks.
It's going to take a while. Yeah.
What else, Ira? What else? You just want to hang out on my couch for a while? You want to watch the end of this softball game?
It is. It's an important game for the softball team. What else?
They got a leadoff hit to start the bottom of the 7th.
We should just do play-by-play of the softball game.
There you go. People want us to do that on headlines for old football games. You could just get a taste right here. Here's the 0-1 from the big UCLA pitcher.
The big UCLA pitcher.
Swing and a miss. Bring it. She's been constantly 67. She's been hitting 60. Even that's her 114th pitch. Oof. She's still topping out at 67. So yeah, you don't like being in an 0-2 hole here. But anyway, we probably won't do this. Maybe we'll record like a end if they come back and win.
Will it come back?
With a comeback, we'll come back and
they're down 3-2 after that heartbreaking play.
The heartbreaking double, like, right in the girls' glove. I assume it was a double.
Yeah.
If you were the official scorer,
double. Yeah.
Double, but you felt
she
like
did the wall first.
Yeah, but I felt like you wanted to give her an E7.
Felt like maybe, but no.
I mean, you are the left fielder at Florida State. You're one of the
preeminent programs in the country.
You're
not your home park.
That's true.
She didn't know where the wall was.
Yeah, that's a good point. So this week we got. Oh man, that was a pitch to hit. Oh, she popped it straight up.
Oh no! UCLA gives them life.
Yeah.
Can't play the
ball. It's a foul ball, but she still gets life. Old Lopristi. This week we got basketball on Tuesday night. What's going on in recruiting? I know Michael was doing. How long have we been going, Ira?
So Michael, we can wrap it up on everybody. 56 minutes.
Oh boy, it's a big
bonus edition.
Yeah.
Rivals had a camp in Orlando. They have their camp series this time of year where they go around and do regional camps. A lot of top prospects there. Florida State was well represented. Keyshawn Spencer,
another
running
Keyshawn.
back commitment.
Okay.
Yep, they got a running back commitment. Keyshawn Spencer out of somewhere in the state of Florida. I think Tampa-ish. Anyway, he was picked the top running back there, so that's a good sign.
Okay, yeah, that is a good sign.
And then they had several other guys that they're involved with. Michael got up with a bunch of them. They talked about – basically the story is consistent with every single guy he talked to, and it's a lot of big-time players that as of 2 or 3 months ago, they were not interested in Florida State at all, but now they are. Yeah. They like Mike Norvell. But the key is going to be what happens and I was thinking we might talk about this on headlines this week, or you guys talk about it on Wake Up also. But, like, what's interesting about this, where they are right now is, honestly, Mike Norvell, from a recruiting standpoint, is at the same place that Willie was at this time in his career. You know, they got through the first signing day. They got in the mix with some big-time players. Remember that first year? Like, he was in the mix with, like, the number one, like the Thibodeau kid. Yeah. I mean, this is the time where you can get in with those big-time players, and Mike Norvell's doing it. You couldn't get into them with the 2020 class because most of those kids committed in December or signed in December. But now you can get in with those guys because they see a fresh start. They're going to give you a chance. They're going to give you a chance to talk. Willie never got to see if he could close any of those guys because the team was so bad. He couldn't put a good product on the floor, on the field. If Florida State looks decent this fall, then we have to see if Norvell then can close the deal with those big-time players because he's going to be recruiting against different guys than he was recruiting against for these guys in 2020.
Yeah, and you kind of get the idea, just off the jump, it sure seems like he'll be able to.
You would think.
I think actually I saw David Coburn at a restaurant on Saturday night, the Florida State athletic director, and he was talking about is it Corey Wren, the signee from the December?
Louisiana.
He just set like the all-time 60-meter mark in Louisiana State history.
Nice.
And it's like, man, that kid, he can really, really run.
Yeah.
Like Florida State track good running.
Yeah, like Florida State's track coaches were involved in that recruitment.
Yeah, and he can really run. So anyway, so he was talking about how, yeah, man, they've got some of these guys they got late. They might only be 3 stars, but they really think all of them are going to play and play a lot. And yeah, you just like we like what you've seen from them so far, but that is a different animal. And it's not that we're saying he can't do it because look, until they started doing it, Nick Saban had never recruited against he was at Michigan State. He had never recruited SEC kids until he got to LSU. Jimbo had never really done it. I mean, you can't do it until you do it. But there's nothing that says he can't do it. But it is a different deal recruiting against these kind of guys.
Dabo was a receivers coach. I mean, before he started. So yeah, I mean, it's like
Does
Willie.
he remind you of Dabo at all? Does he have any Dabo qualities?
No.
The energy.
No, he's much more serious, it seems like.
But I think he's got the same kind of energy.
Maybe.
He is definitely more serious than Dabo.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he has a sense of humor, but he's not.
We haven't seen much of it
He's
yet.
not a goofball like Dabo. And I'm not saying that
it works.
pejorative. Like he's not quite the goofball that Dabo, or he's not a goofball at all like Dabo can be.
I thought that had a chance there.
Yeah, it was a foul though. She's the leadoff hitter too. She's down 122 pitches. I guess in softball it just doesn't matter, right? It's a natural. You could throw 300. So yeah, and you got your best hitter on deck. So yeah, the girl, I don't remember her name, number 9 hitter. She struck out after the third baseman missed the pop-up foul ball. Now it's a 1-2 count. This is the St. Pete Clearwater Elite Invitational, by the way. Sydney Sherrill on deck. That's outside. That's not close. 2-2 count. I'm surprised they're not trying to steal second here. Wouldn't you want to get in?
But you don't want your last out at second.
That's true, and also you don't want him to walk Sherrill
good point.
Because she hit a home run earlier in the game off this pitcher. By the way, I know that I was about to ask if you knew this, and I know you don't. UCLA's 2 best players are redshirting this year because they're trying out for the USA Olympic team.
Wow, it's like FSU soccer.
Right, but they've redshirted the whole
year.
Yeah, and they're still number 2 in the country.
Oh my gosh, they just called her out
for stepping out of the box.
Are you serious?
Oh, see, that's what happens when you argue. The UCLA coach came out and argued, and then they said she stepped out of the box.
But she didn't.
Stepped on the plate. Maybe stepped on the plate. Her foot was over the plate.
She kind of stepped in front of the plate.
Like, yeah, her foot is like right on the throat of the plate. But she's not out of the box.
Is that illegal?
I don't know. Lonnie's trying to get a ruling. They're upset. The FSU coaches are upset. At the moment of bat ball contact, the batter may not have any part of her foot touching the ground outside the lines of the batter's box. She didn't.
Didn't look like it.
She didn't. Unless they do have the batter's box. There's supposed to be a batter's box right near the inside of the plate too. So maybe she was stepping over that, they think. Nonsense.
This is good radio.
It's great radio. But hey, if you've
this
listened
is
to
what happens. This is what happens when Aslan goes to Bali.
Yeah, when he's out of town. He's lucky there's still a show when he gets back. If he gets back. We don't even know if he's going to have some stories, I think, from Bali.
Suitable for the radio?
Probably a couple, I would think. All right, here we go. We're down to this, Ira. Well, we're watching it, right? I want to be able.
Oh, she was on that.
That was the pitch right down the middle. 66.
That was a mistake. You can't put that pitch there.
No, she didn't want that there. It looks like that she hung a change up there.
They're showing the replay of her earlier home run.
Yeah. Right over the right field fence, yep. Gave them a 2-1 lead, and then they had it until the last out in the 7th inning. Man, that was a pitch to hit. Garrett Cole's there at the game. Former UCLA pitcher.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think about all this Astros stuff, Ira, while we're watching this?
I think what I do like is that all these players now are just coming out and just no holds barred.
Oh, yeah.
Killing them.
Yeah.
Like Bellinger or whatever. I mean, like they're just.
Like they took my ring. They robbed Judge of a MVP.
Because that never happened.
It didn't even happen with steroids.
Yeah.
But with steroids, they were all on them. So they couldn't really say too much. But most of them were on them. But these guys, none of these other teams you think are banging trash cans.
Do you think any team out there is really scared right now?
I'd say the ones that aren't talking. The ones that aren't talking must have something to hide. Bellinger doesn't have anything to hide. It's pretty remarkable that. And what's crazy is they're not going to take away the title. They're not going to take away the World Series championship. Meanwhile, in college sports, if you have a tutor give some free classes or give some answers,
vacate wins.
You got to vacate 36 wins. Yeah, those are all ineligible. They just vacate anything and everything.
This is going to be so disappointing if we wait for this and they lose.
Well, it's 1-2. She's down 0-2.
2 outs.
2 outs.
Runner first.
Runner at first. She's the winning run.
Pitcher,
she is the best hitter.
Pitcher's about to throw a 127th pitch.
Yep. What'd you go with here? Change up? She had a change up out.
Yeah, I didn't like. She was all over that fastball before.
Nope, that's out.
Not chasing.
That's out. Man, it's so hard in softball too with the umpires because you never know if they're going to call a strike or not. Yeah, they stand up no matter what. If it's a ball or strike, they stand back up, and then you have to wait to see if they raise their arm or not. I don't know why they do that. Like
I
it's
think
universal.
They may say something before they do the arm gesture. Yeah. If you're there, you hear it.
It's universal that they all call a strike the same way. Nope, that's inside too. She's scared of her. Now you don't want to walk her and put the tying run in scoring position. It's a big.
Who's protecting her? Who's behind her in the lineup, Corey?
I think it's Jesse Warren.
I don't think that's true.
It's Jesse Warren. Who was the? Who was the great hitter they had right before her? Anyway, Maddie O'Brien.
Maddie O'Brien was. She was really good.
Nope.
Oh,
she
no.
swung at it. I get it.
That's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, that was going to be ball 4. It was outside, but she swung at it. So UCLA wins 3-2. Florida State, I think, went 1-4 down there after really beating the tar out of Washington earlier in the week. That was a rough weekend for them.
Alabama, right? Wasn't it Alabama they beat early in the week?
Yeah, that's right. They run-ruled Alabama, who was number 1 in the country. Then Alabama went and run-ruled Washington. But not that, again, I know this isn't necessarily a softball podcast, but Florida State starts 6 newcomers, 5 freshmen. Really, really young team. Really young team. But thought they performed admirably.
Well, you're welcome, Up Warchant fans, for the.
Now we got, looks like LeBron, Team LeBron and Team Giannis. It's 30. How is it only 34? Did they change the scoring?
Yeah, in the first half it was
like 56.
Oh, no, there's the total score. Then they show the quarter scores.
What is that
That's
about?
the total score up there.
That's weird.
78-75.
Is that how they're just scoring it differently now? Anyway, you'll be able to hear us again on Seminole Headlines, I would assume, in a couple of days. And then
Aslan will be back.
Aslan will be back. I know some of you are really happy about that after what you've heard for the last hour, and some of you won't be. But that's just Aslan's nature. But either way, he appreciates that you guys listen to the show. We'll have him back, and we'll start to get on a regular. We'll start to get on a regular show basis where it's like a couple times a week, right? Don't you think?
2 or 3.
At least through spring football practice and then into the summer. So anyway, we love you guys. Ira, stop the recordings. Tell everyone you said bye.
Goodbye.